Genuine Truth here, and welcome to Otaku Evolution. Today we'll close this year's Action Channel month, which, well, frankly, I don't know if I have too many left in the future, if any. I'm really running out of titles. Time to start another theme month, I guess. And yes, this was supposed to be a September event, but has now bled into October. Sorry. As I've often lamented, many animes seem to have identity crises. Their tone or focus or even genres are confused and amorphous. Now, that on its own isn't necessarily bad unless it gets in the way of telling the story. I defy you to identify the genre of Yasuhiro Imagawa's Giant Robo OVA, for instance. By the way, gonna get to that. With that title, it's not a bad thing. It's a bit of a lot of things. But when you have an ongoing franchise, there are certain expectations, and a sudden shift can be unnerving. And maybe that's why Patlabor 3, WXIII, isn't as lauded as the first two movies. Well, among other reasons. It's a little tragic that you can't speak on the third Patlabor film without talking about the first two, helmed by Mamoru Oshii. They are, for all intents and purposes, the peak of Patlabor. They elevated a comfortable, low-key comedy-tinged mecha anime into big political thrillers, especially with the second one. They deserve to be on anybody's list of favorite anime features. The third Patlabor, however, is a few things. It's sans Oshii for one thing, directed instead by Fumihiko Takayama, director of Gundam 0080 War in the Pocket. It's also based on a story directly from Masami Yuki's original Patlabor manga, albeit somewhat loosely. It's a thriller, it's a chiller, it's action, it's detective noir. But is it Patlabor? It's not like Patlabor's always been only one thing, though. The biggest problem with WXIII is that what it isn't the first two movies. Set between the first and second Patlabor films, WXIII sees two detectives, Shinichiro Hata and Takeshi Kusumi, investigating a rash of attacks on laborers and their operators. The crimes are becoming more gruesome, and it soon becomes apparent it's not by anything human. It seems as though that scientists working with the military have been doing secret illegal experiments, and Hata's new potential love interest is somehow involved. The mysterious thing perpetrating the attacks turns out to be some biologically engineered creature that grew too big to handle and whose threat grows larger by the day. Much of the movie is the two detectives, Hata, the younger one, and Kusumi, the more seasoned vet, trying to uncover the mystery behind WXIII until they run headlong into it and it becomes a matter of how to stop it. Hata's new flame Saeko's past is delved into as the two unlock the tragedy that led her decision to create the monster and unleash it. So it's a bit of a kaiju film, but also neo-noir in some ways. It revolves very little around the creature itself and concentrates more on Hata's relationship with his partner and Saeko. That's where most of the content comes from, the character interactions of both the subtle and gross. And by gross, I mean this! Okay, what I really want to highlight isn't the beast, but the relationship between people, like the dynamic between the two detectives and how their worldviews occasionally clash.
You know she's involved, don't you?
Mr. Kusumi.
Huh?
I'll locate her, all by myself.
Yeah? Are you going to post a message on the internet? I'm looking for the girlfriend who left me?
Shall I post one for you, Mr. Kusumi? I'm looking for the family that left me.
It's really only in the last act of the movie that we see any real involvement from Patlabor's regulars, Special Vehicles Section 2, Unit 2. Noah Izumi, Asuma Shinohara, Isao Ota, Captain Gotoh, etc. Gotoh is actually an old friend and contact of Kusumi, which is no shock because Gotoh has contacts in a lot of places. I am kind of surprised that Detective Matsui from the OVA and the other two movies doesn't get involved as well. But the movie is in no way about Section 2, which made a lot of people, including me, wonder, why make this a Patlabor movie at all? Sure, ultimately Section 2 is required to help take down the monster in the finale, but with so little involvement in the investigation, they just feel like an afterthought. and labors themselves barely factor into the ongoing mystery. So why even set this in the world of Patlabor? Isn't this movie, much like the creature itself at the end, just using the cloak of a mecha anime?
Copy is okay with you.
Excuse us.
Huh?
We were sent here from Special Vehicles Unit 2.
Special vehicles?
You should be expecting us. We called ahead.
Then who the heck are you two?
It's not like Patlabor's never had giant monsters. The TV series especially had them. Nor has the mecha action been the focus, because it's always been about the characters above all other things. But to tease us with the glorified cameo of Unit 2 in a movie that isn't about them, nor features big labor action scenes or pilot characters, doesn't that confuse the entire proceedings? What exactly is this movie intending to be? It wants to be a detective story. It wants to be a monster story. It wants to be a mecha story. It wants to not be Patlabor at the same time it is being Patlabor. It's a crime drama. It's a monster mash. It's a tragedy. And it tries to juggle these things. No, actually it doesn't. It just shifts from one to the next without a care. Again, the question is, what is Patlabor 3? It's confused is what it is. But on its own, it's not bad. I dare say I rather enjoy it.
The monster. Baker's dozen. And wasted 13. She's been called a lot of different names. But to me, she only has one real name.
I did come to genuinely sympathize and desire to follow the two detectives on their investigation and hold out hope further tragedy could be avoided. They're not as quirky or charming as the regular Patlabor cast, but they have their own unique characteristics without just being shallow archetypes. Hata isn't all naive and impetuous, Kusumi isn't all-knowing and wise, and they complement each other's skills well enough to be a good team. It is a bit strange when the movie tries to have its cake and eat it too with that scene where the monster attacks them at the storage facility, but otherwise, they aren't in any crazy shootouts or wild roof chases that turn them into cowboy cops. Just two serious investigators. And the final act has some emotional punch to it, even if it does sort of cheat in places, and if you see it, you'll know what I mean. But it all works out in the end, so you forgive its flaws. But boy, does it take liberties with its source material. In the manga, the monster is more of a crab or lobster-looking thing with big claws, but otherwise shares some similar physical attributes to the one in the film. The research team doing the experiments are also adapted decently into the character designs of the movie. Even some minute details, like pictures of Saeko and her father, or him and his research team, are very similar, and elements of the finale of the film come right out of the manga too. The obvious biggest difference is that in the manga, Section 2 is at the forefront of handling the case, rather than in the background. It then boggles me why they went for two characters for the lead of the movie that, as far as I can tell, aren't even in the manga. I mean, at the time, the voice actors in the lead roles were obviously still available, so why did Takayama, Headgear, and the screenplay writer Miko Tori move the focus from Unit 2 to entirely new characters?
Are you alright out there?
I'm fine. I can handle this.
Don't shoot! Hold your fire!
Well, all I can guess is that they wanted to keep even more distance between the mecha elements inherent in Patlabor and give the audience a more hard-boiled crime drama approach, even if it is a mystery kaiju film hybrid. Perhaps they were looking to do further sequels with these two new characters in the same world of Patlabor and use Patlabor as a springboard. But if that's so, it seems like kind of a dirty trick on the fans, because this movie could have existed without the Patlabor elements, which tend to frustrate me when I see them because it's such a tease.
We only have one shot, right?
Yes, I'm afraid that's all we'll get.
Sir, that's fine. One shot will be more than enough, sir.
The warhead will be installed on Ota's number 2. Izumi's number 1 will support Ota. Got it?
Yes, sir!
It's possible that the only noteworthy thing about this movie is just how bizarre its existence is. On its own, it's fine if confused, but if you get into the why of it, you have a lot more to chew on, even if it's all speculation. This is like if you made a Lupin III feature where Lupin and the gang barely show up, save towards the end, and was just about the new character who wanted, and we're talking about green versus red now, aren't we? But that's okay, Patlabor 3 Wasted 13. You're not as fun as the OVA, you're not even a real adaptation of the source material, and you're certainly not as good as the first two movies, but, where was I going again? Right. I mean, you're still worth watching, you freakish patchwork of genres with the Patlabor brand stapled onto you. We'll never have glory, Patlabor 3, but at least we'll always have Beethoven.
A combat copter?
And that wraps up Action Channel Month here on Otaku Evolution. The Action Channel gave me a pretty decent variety of anime titles, and helped expand both my purview and collection. Anybody can celebrate Toonami or Adult Swim, and they're right to, but Action Channel deserves its own spotlight too, for its influence on me as an anime geek. I'll be on a break for a couple of weeks, but I'll still be working on things for the show. Feel free to rewatch my old videos, the ones you weren't watching anyway, and contribute to my Patreon, which none of you do anyway. Now I remember why I'm taking a break. See ya!
Victims? Don't be melodramatic. Look down there. Would you really feel any pity if one of those dots stopped moving forever? If I offered you 20,000 pounds for every dot that stopped, would you really, old man, tell me to keep my money? Or would you calculate how many dots you could afford to spend? Free of income tax, old man. Free of income tax. The only way you can save money nowadays.
A lot of good your money will do you in jail.
That jail's in another zone. There's no proof against me. Besides you.
I should be pretty easy to get rid of.
Pretty easy.
Wouldn't be too sure.
I carry a gun. Don't think they'd look for a bullet wound after you hit that ground.
See you in September. See you when the summer's through. Will I see you in September or lose you to a summer love?